What's up, y'all? Today we are here with Connected to Create Marketing Talks. And as we talk about marketing, we're talking about marketing in relation to how marketing aligns with biblical principles and biblical truths. And so we're talking to the kingdom entrepreneur. We are talking about how to align your business, how to align yourself, how to align your works with the will of God so that you can do and produce the very thing God is calling you to produce. This week's topic is brand trust. When we're talking about brand trust, we are talking about a measure of how much customers trust a particular company, product, or service. This determines whether or not a business is trustworthy based on their actions and communications, as well as customer experience. So anytime we're talking about brand trust, anytime we're talking about being a trusted brand, we have to ask ourselves questions. How am I showing up? What do people believe about me? What are people saying about me? What are people believing who I am? And do I remain consistent across the board? Consistency is a big portion of what it is when we're talking about brand trust and how brands show up. So, with that being said, one of the things I have here written today is the real from the fake. If we're going to be real about brand trust, one of the things that we got to discuss is the real from the fake. In business, so many times we see the fake versus the real. We see the Canal Street Louis Vuitton versus the real Louis Vuitton, right? And when we think about these things, real from the fake, we have to be able to identify what is making someone want to go to the fake versus the real. And when we're moving in real from the fake as it relates to brand trust, there are many, I have written here, there may be many who can do what you do, but the thing about you is you have brand trust because God is backing your brand if you've been obedient to him. So not only is brand trust necessary, but we have the ability to say God will back our brands, the thing he called us to do, the thing he called us to create. God will back it so long as we're obedient to the thing he called us to do. So long as we do the thing that he's calling us to do the way he's calling us to do it. When we look at brand trust, one of the stories that God brought up to me almost instantly with spotting the real from the fake is Moses. Moses, as he was working with God to set the people free. And so when we go here, I'm going to go to Exodus 7, verse 9 through 12. And it reads, "When Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, 'Show a miracle for yourselves,' then you shall say to Aaron, 'Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent.' So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they did so just as the Lord commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. So the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For every man threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods." Why is this important? Because when we're looking at the real from the fake, we're looking at the authentic thing that God told you to do, the authentic work that God is calling you to produce. You have to understand the real will always outshine the fake. The real will always have more value than the fake. The real will always be more valuable. The real will always outshine the fake. And the real will always be more reputable than the fake. So anytime we're talking about your reputation, you don't let your reputation be tainted by trying to do something other than what God said or trying to navigate as other than what God spoke, because the real will always outshine the fake. And so as you're navigating as the person that God called you to, as you're establishing the business that God called you to establish, continue to remain faithful to the thing that God said. Continue to show up as what God spoke your business to be, what God spoke your kingdom work to be, whether it be your church, whether it be your business, whether it be a program, whether it be a play. Stay true to the original vision. Don't derail. Stay true to who you are, because those who see your brand will be able to identify the God within your brand, so that when you move as a kingdom business that you're called to be, there won't be any hesitation in following the thing that God called you to. God will draw those who are called to it. When you think about this text, God was doing a work to set the Israelites free, to get them out of Pharaoh's hands, so that they could be out of Egypt and they could have their Exodus moment. Whenever it is that God is calling forth you to be free, you to move, you to go, he'll back you when he tells you. He'll back you based off of what he told you. And in this example, though the imitators, though the knockoffs, try to show up and do something, they can never produce what God was able to do. And that's how the serpent was able to swallow up all the other ones, because in the end, God's word will always prevail, and God's word will always travail over the things that the enemy's trying to do. Now, one of the things that I have to highlight here is Exodus 8, verse 17 through 19. And it reads, "And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became lice on man and beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all of the land of Egypt. Now the magicians worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, 'This is the finger of God.'" Can somebody look at what you're doing and say, "This is the finger of God"? Can somebody look at what God is establishing through you and say, "This is the finger of God"? If you continue to remain in the place of the brand trust, if you continue to do the thing God called you to do, if you continue to move the way God called you to move, and you show up as that trusted brand, and you show up and do what God has called you to do, and you show up and move the way God called you to move, can people say, "This truly is the finger of God"? So that now people are trusting the brand that you carry because it's truly showing up as what God called it to show up as. We got to be able to move in the vein of God said, so we're doing. And God said, so we're navigating as God said, so we will produce the very thing that God called us to produce. Why is brand trust important? Brand trust is important because the more people trust your brand, the more it will increase your sales. The more it will increase your visibility. The more it will increase your customer retention. The more it will increase your reputation across the border. That's how brands today are able to get, brands today and brands of the past were able to get word of mouth marketing. Because the more trusted they were, the more people were willing to talk about them. The more they did, the more people were willing to show up on their behalf. The more they shown up, the more they produced, the more they put out, the increase of customers, the increase of sales, and the increase of following. So as you're going, understand, brands understand this. Brands understand what they're doing. Marketing companies understand. Let's take Apple, for instance. Apple understands that they've built enough brand trust that people want to keep coming back to them. They built enough brand trust that people want to still get all their products. People want to get the Apple Watch. People want to have the iPhone. People want to have the iMac. People want to have the iPad Pros, the MacBook Pros. And it's because Apple has built such a brand trust that people trust that when I buy this Apple product, it won't get a virus. When I buy this Apple product, it'll be streamlined across all my products. They'll all function well together. And when I buy this Apple product, it shall last me for a while before I have to get a new one. And so because people have that trust in that product, people are willing to show up and put their money into it, even though it comes with a premium price. People are willing to show up and still purchase because Apple has built enough trust in the brand that they can put out a product with a high ticket price and people will still purchase it because they believe in the product that Apple has. Can people believe in the product that you're producing? Can people believe in the works that you're doing? And can people follow it? And even in the face of imitators, even in the place of multiple people in your market, can you still show up as the business and the kingdom work that God called to be birthed so that you can do the very thing that God called you to do? This is Connected to Create with your marketing talks. Let's go out. Let's build for the kingdom. And let's use marketing in a kingdom way, using kingdom principles to be able to show up as the very best ones in the market and show how God can take over every mountain of influence that we have today so that God can reign and God can prevail in each and everything that we're called to do. Y'all, let's build. Let's build for the kingdom. And let's build in a way that God can get the glory out of all the things that we do. Show up, be you, be authentic, and be the brand that people can trust. I'll see you next time. And if you haven't already, please make sure you follow and subscribe. I am Kyle Robertson on all social media platforms.